everybody. Welcome back to another Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast. This is another episode of the Shakti Soul Sessions series. And I am so exhausted. I was vacillating and debating whether or not I should do a podcast recording. I've been really exhausted the last couple of days. Well, yesterday was a really hard day for Tower events basically happened. If you do tarot, if you know of tarot cards, there's a Tower card, and that's when shit hits the fan. Happened in 4 separate different occasions, and I was exhausted. I was spent, and I just did not want to talk, did not want to expend any energy. I'm still feeling the remnants of it, the residual energy deficits from it, but I'm here, I'm recording, and I'm showing up. And today is about, if you don't know, it's the full moon also. And I am actually going to read this from Rising Woman. And so they actually said that we're being shaken from our comfort zones and propelled toward needed change. So this is a full moon in Taurus tonight. And with Uranus involved, we may feel a sudden urge to break away from stagnant situations or embrace a different path in life, either through unexpected insights or events. We're also being asked to question beliefs and stories we live by. The invitation here is to allow for the space to evolve, to ground, to trust that even the most unexpected shifts are guiding us toward a life that resonates deeply with who we truly are. So it's all about letting go of old paradigms, societal structures, any attachments that we have that keep us stuck in patterns of disappointment and disempowerment. And I will share in the show notes a link to that Instagram post, but I just felt that I was really feeling in the energies today and have been feeling it. And so I remember talking to one of my best friends yesterday, and she said, it's the full moon tomorrow. I thought, this is why. So a lot of unexpected things just happened yesterday, too many things, and my nervous system was a little overwhelmed, but I wanted to hop on here because this idea of spirituality came up, and this is something that I haven't really spoken about before, and so usually my Shakti soul sessions are a little bit shorter, but I just wanted to talk about this topic and just see where the hell it goes. And it's based on spirituality, and it's so funny because I was just thinking about how my spiritual practice is, what do I even define spirituality to be? And to me, spirituality is just looking deep within yourself to find that connection to your soul of why you are here on earth, right? What is your purpose to be on earth? Why did you choose to incarnate into this vessel, into your body on earth? What is the real reason why you're here? And that's when you actually start to look beyond the subconscious and really be conscious and waking up and think, okay, it's not just you to have an experience, but how are you helping the collective? And I always like to think about it in relation to the collective, in relation to society, of how you're here impacting other people. You're having these experiences, you're having these different levels of growth and expansion and contraction, when we have challenging times, but how are you using those experiences to transmute as wisdom to share it with others and teach others? Wherever you go, you don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be a coach, you don't have to be an educator, but how are you taking those experiences and the relationships that you have, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's, children, whether it's your romantic partner, your friends. And oftentimes, I think about it, it's so interesting because I recently went to a new acupuncturist. I spoke about my back. I threw out my back a week ago. It's feeling much better. And she was checking all my pulses. There's 3 pulses she checks on each wrist. And she said, "Oh, you're very calm. you're and she asked me what I did. And I said, I do Kundalini yoga. I meditate. I, have done a lot of spiritual work. And she says, it shows in your pulse. And I wasn't always like that. I was actually very much a walking zombie. I drank a lot, and a lot of I've been sober since 2011. And I really used things outside of myself to just anesthetize this emotional hole. And the thing that's really interesting is that in 12-step communities, you talk a lot about the spiritual disease. They actually identify addictions as spiritual diseases. And I actually believe that to be very true. I think a lot of people in society actually have addictions. A lot of people just don't have help for it. Either they anesthetize with social media, they anesthetize in relationships, they anesthetize with working a lot, which is very much something to be proud about in America, especially because we pride ourselves a lot in working and making money and being capitalists and having a capitalistic society. It's just, it's anything to, and the way I define it is just anything to not feel something, to not feel pain, to not feel uncomfortable or just any type of discomfort. And so essentially, it's what makes you addicted to something is the rewiring and the chemicals in your brain. And so when you drink alcohol, it creates a spiritual experience, right? You get drunk, you feel totally amazing. I mean, that's why they call it alcohol spirits. You change spirits and you feel uplifted. It gives you that liquid confidence. You feel less inhibited. You can somehow be yourself. You have more courage. And the more you drink, the more your brain chemistry starts to alter and physically so that you actually need to consume more of that thing. And then it becomes a physical addiction. But you have to think about what makes someone addicted, what makes someone want to turn away from themselves and choose substances that are fake, right? So it's getting dopamine from something else rather than getting dopamine from yourself. And that just got me thinking about the spiritual malady and spirituality and how I feel so connected to my purpose, how I feel so connected. And I see this a lot too with people who are in jobs that they hate. They're disgruntled. And there's something in 12-step where I used to say, if someone hasn't had a drink, they're restless, irritable, and discontent. How many people do you know in your life are restless, irritable, and discontent because they're at a job that they don't like, because they're at their relationship they don't like? They're overly critical, right? And it's, oh my gosh, just lighten up. Take that drink or go shopping or go doom scroll. And that to me is the spiritual malady that we have on earth, that we are not connected to our souls. We are not connected to our truth. And it's so funny because I interviewed a beautiful woman today. Her name's Nyoko Gilchrist, and she's going to be in that episode in December. But she and I were talking about spirituality. I had no idea where this conversation was going to go. I met her at an event this past week, an event that we both spoke at. And we both talked about it, how we both had spiritual maladies. And the woman that I saw, on Zoom in front of me, she said, this is not the woman who I was before. And so I just want to point that out that, I'm not saying that pharmaceuticals isn't real or that physical ailments isn't real. But there are people that say that a lot of the physical symptoms are just are expressions of our emotional inner landscape, of our spiritual inner landscape, when we're not connected to our soul. And it's pretty alarming. It's pretty alarming, and I see it so often. And, people they ask me, why are you so happy? Or why are you like this? Why are you like that? And, it's not like I don't have personal problems in my life. I do, right? Of course, everybody does. But I just learned to have faith. I learned to rely on my spiritual practice. I learned to connect to my soul. I learned to connect to my truth. I have practices. I have different rituals for connecting to my spirituality, for connecting to that deep inner wisdom that I have inside of me that we all have access to. And you can even look at it through nature. You don't have to have a Kundalini yoga practice. You don't have to believe in anything, right? Like I know plenty of people who are atheists, but they have this conception of knowing that their purpose in life is beyond what the waking eye sees. And so I invite you to just think even deeper about where in your life do you feel that spiritual hole inside of you? Do you find yourself crabby? Do you find yourself cranky? Do people want to be around you? Are you grumpy all the time? Are you a critic all the time? Are you always bringing your inner judge everywhere? Do you just shit on everything? Because to me, that really shows someone. If you are restless, irritable, and discontent, right? If you're discontent with everything, if you can't see the beauty in everything, it's a challenge for you to see the beauty in everything. How can you find more happiness in the simple things? And one thing to think about is that when you're around someone like that, imagine the way they speak to themselves. They're just taking out on you. They're deflecting their anger because they really don't like themselves. In fact, they probably hate themselves. The self-hatred's very palpable, right? Maybe they play victim. But I want to warn you that when we surround ourselves with people like that, there's a tendency for people in that relationship dynamic to want to play small, to want to diminish themselves, to want to diminish their needs because they're afraid of getting any type of attention drawn to them or getting any type of criticism drawn to them. And so really be mindful. And this is why it's so important, the work that I do of helping people claim and attract those healthy, loving relationships, because you don't have to be in those type of dynamics. Maybe you were as a child, but it's because you didn't have a choice. You can't just leave, right? You couldn't just leave. So you just had to sit there and take it and develop defense mechanisms, ways of surviving to just thrive on your own, not having any type of guidance on how to do something differently. And so you don't have to replay those types of dynamics in your adulthood. You don't have to find a partner that reminds you of your parents or that dynamic because it's something that you're so used to. You don't have to play small anymore. You don't have to pretend that you don't have any needs or that you can't take up space because someone's needs are more important than yours or that you may be considered too much. It doesn't have to be that way. It can actually be a very different experience where you can have a really loving relationship where you have the ability to take up so much space and your actual emotions and your needs are going to be honored and you can come there with all of it because it's going to be accepted. You can feel empowered to share who you are, every ounce and every being of who you are. It is possible. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to surround yourself with people that bring you down. You don't have to be a doormat. Your purpose isn't just to be someone's caretaker either, right? Your purpose on earth wasn't here to just be the lesser version of who you are. Really step up and step into that unbridled, beautiful expression and version of who you are. Fully embodied, fully. And we call it Shakti, that life force, that energy that it demands, that it craves to take up full space into your body. Because you've been deprived of all of those nutrients in your soul. And so what's coming up for me is just, maybe you grew up in an environment where you weren't watered with loving compliments and kindness and thoughts and just so much love. Maybe you were in a drought, you were dehydrated, you were malnourished of emotional nutrients. And so I hope you cannot blame yourself. Right? I hope you don't blame yourself. And when you find yourself in romantic relationships or trying new things, and I know it's hard out there. But I hope you don't feel shame about maybe not figuring things out at a certain age or feeling too old or feeling embarrassed or feeling ashamed about your choices because sometimes you didn't know those decisions. You were asleep. And so that's when we start to look at how can we connect to our soul? How can we connect to our truth? And how do we let go of relationships? And so if you find yourself in a relationship where you're starting to realize, okay, this is not healthy for me. This is something I don't want to be in anymore because it's just this old dynamic and this old part of me and identity that I don't want to play into anymore, then you don't have to. No one's forcing you. You don't have to. You can leave. You'll be okay if you leave. Maybe it'll be even better, right? And so we think about that passage I read about the full moon in Taurus, about really letting those outdated structures and paradigms and programs be released. When things fall apart, that's what it means when the blocks are being removed. And how can you not stand in the way, clawing to things that you think are good for you? Because maybe they're not. And it takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of strength to release those old things, because maybe you were integrated or weaved into those dynamics and that created an identity for you. And you're thinking, well, who am I if I'm not that? And how can you look with eyes of the beginner mindset and just curiosity of, maybe I get to choose who I want to be. Maybe I get to choose the role that I get to have. Maybe I get to dream up something so beautiful. Maybe I get to connect to who I truly am for once in my life. And so if you want to dive deeper into this work, if you want to dive deeper into truly paving a path that's connected to you, rooted in spiritual practices of finding, connecting to your soul so that you can call on those healthy, loving, beautiful, next level relationships that make you feel so emotionally secure and loved, where you can bring all of you, I'm opening up 3 spots for one-on-one coaching. So book a sales call with me, and it will be a beautiful opportunity to see if we're fit. I'd love to support you in your journey. All right. Thanks, everyone. Sat Nam.